Totally let down, and my life is over, and I cut myself a few times.
You know, like when you make a nice sauce,
tantamount to emotional larceny.
Westworld has handled some really deep philosophical concepts.
Strap in your 4-point hate harnesses.
Thin layer of bacteria on a ball of mud.
What? Huh? Like, well, where did he come from? And
this show is failing to tell its story.
I'm already choosing hatred.
Ooh, clever.
Broadcasting live from inside the end of the world as we know it. This is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies. I'm your host, the Wolverine, along with my super happy friends, Bitchy Bitch.
Boo.
And Bitchy Mitch Mick.
Am I bitchy Mick? I can't even do it. Mick.
And Bitchy Mick.
Hey.
That's right, folks. This week we're going to be talking about the second half of season 3 of Westworld. And I apparently am the only person that's excited to talk about this, as my two cohorts are. They're not bullish, as it were.
Yeah, fart noises all around.
Oh boy, okay.
I don't know, the first time I finished the season, maybe, I don't know, a week or... I finished it as it aired, and I just remember being, like, really frustrated and, like, totally let down, and my life was over, and I cut myself a few times like Charlotte Hale did. But after kind of, like, thinking about it more and revisiting it a bit, like, I'm not as boo-hoo about it, and I also think it's kind of silly to be boo-hoo about it, but I'm still a little bit frustrated. So I'm just kind of curious how it landed for you guys.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience the first time I watched it. By the time we got to the last episode, I was just like, what? Come on, really? And then on the second watching, I was kind of, I don't know. I it's not that I was like, oh, this is amazing, but I was also like, I don't know why I was so upset. You know, it's like it took a minute for it to kind of hang in there and you know, make its way, I don't know, like on the second watching, like something had happened, and I was kind of more okay with it.
It kind of needed to. Did it need to sit in the fridge overnight? You know, as often great dishes do. You know, and then
like when you make a nice sauce, and you know, it's just like you cook it. You know, you cook it down. You could eat it right away. It's pretty good, but you know, you put it in the fridge, and then it's like the next day. Ooh, so good.
Fazul.
It was something like that. Only it wasn't really good. It was just better.
Wasn't as good as a overnight refrigerated all sides lasagna, but it was still lasagna.
Overnight refrigerated all edges lasagna. Folks, you heard it here first on the EBD.
It's all edges.
It's all edges, and it'll put you over the edge.
So was the show an all edged lasagna for you, Kev? Like, what you sound like you're pretty pumped on the season.
The show, I'm happy to be awake. I'm happy to be alive. I had a very opposite reaction from my friends here. I watched the end of it and I was like, "Oh, cool." I was like, "Oh, they didn't screw it up," and like, this is good. I was like, "Nice, awesome." And then I was like, "All right, what can I watch now?" So. Short and sweet. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I liked the wrap up, and I liked the kind of open endedness. By the same token, I did just see the post credit scenes from episode 8. I didn't even realize they were there. So I don't know. Maybe by the end of the show, when I've had time to let all that stew together, I might be the one on the other side of the fence.
When you've heard us complain for an entire hour, you're going to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to lower my rating.
Well, this might be one of those situations, Chad, where, instead of one of us, kind of flipping the other one on a particular film or television property, and enjoying it more, it might just be that you two hate it so much that we all hate it by the end. And that's okay. That's great content, yeah.
I don't think so, but...
Can I just state for the record that post-credit scenes need to just go away forever? I'm over them, 100% over them.
Chad, my hatred for post-credit scenes is now probably greater than your own, if that's even possible. You mentioned it a while back, and it was a great little device when Avengers was coming out, the first one.
It was perfect for a little while there.
Yeah, and now it is just done to death. Like, everybody's doing it. It's so annoying. I feel like I actually watched a recap on YouTube from this channel that I randomly found a couple of weeks back when we did the first half of Westworld, and the name of the channel is Man of Recaps, and he's really funny, man. And he said there's not one but two post-credit scenes, so I watched them both, the whatever in the recap video, and I was like, so that's the way we're rolling now? Like, one post-credit scene isn't enough. Now we gotta like try to up the bar again and do two, because I'm definitely not feeling that at all. That just seems to make it worse.
Talking about like the Avengers thing, where it's a post-credit scene of them all like hanging out eating shawarma because it was mentioned earlier in the movie, and it's just like a little funny bonus. It doesn't have anything to do with like the story at large. That's great.
Sure.
But when you leave a bunch of fucking loose ends and you use these little post-credit scenes to sort of like, I don't know, tie some things up and tease people about the next season, I feel like that's just kind of, you've heard me say it before, that is jankety.
Yeah.
It is jankety, Ben. You're right. And I think that it's really tantamount to emotional larceny. And, I was gonna open this episode with a line from one of the episodes that really perfectly mirrored our own feelings about this. I was gonna say, I was gonna use Dolores' line of "I choose beauty," but I'm already choosing hatred because I'm so pissed now about these post-credit scenes. I just want to.
But the best part is that I thought you were going with a totally different line, and that's where the Man in Black says that we're a thin layer of bacteria on a ball of mud. The human race is which completely mirrored our like utter Depressionville end of the last Westworld episode, where we were talking about how we were all just horrible monkeys that were terrible people.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He also said in the same virtual therapy session that we were all maggots feeding on a corpse. I was like, yeah, there you go.
I love that the dude in the session with him was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
So that's kind of me coming into this particular episode tonight, as I was hoping that at the end, neither of you would say, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? So I'm trying to keep my my grumpiness tempered.
Well, I'm gonna swing back. I think I just have to get over my initial now hatred of the post-credit scenes. So yeah, folks, strap in your 4-point hate harnesses and let's go for a hate ride.
What's the roller coaster that chews you up in the Nothing But Trouble?
The Bone Stripper.
The Bone Stripper. Take a ride on the Bone Stripper with us, folks.
Take a ride on the Bone Stripper.
So on the Bone Stripper, I wouldn't mind just touching on my key gripe and trying to get it out of the way.
Okay, you go first.
So I've got two gripes. One of them we touched on before, which is Maeve's motivations, which we'll get to. But I feel like the show is failing to tell its story. And I think like the key example of that is I had no idea what the fuck was going on, just like every other season of the show, so that's fine. And expected to have some sort of resolution where I understood better what was going on, and didn't really feel like I got that. And then I watched the post-credits making of in the last episode where the creators spoke about what their intentions were for the season, and I was like, oh, that's what you wanted to come, get across? Oh, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Can you quickly recap that for me?
I can, yeah. So like just before I quote them, that was what bothered me, is that like, so that's what you wanted to come across, well, that's not what I took, so therefore it was confusing, and I feel like they failed to kind of tell the story.
No, I'm sorry. Can you quickly recap what the creators said? Because I didn't see that.
Yeah. I just wanted to finish the thought first. So
got it. Sorry, I'm gonna shut up.
It's all good. So in the post making of thing for the last episode, Lisa Joy says, we wanted to turn the gaze from how an AI can be similar to humans to how humans are quite similar to AI. While a human can always change its programming, they can evolve. humans can't. So in a way, are humans more robotic than artificial intelligences? Can they ever be free? Can they ever truly change? That is the inquiry of the season.
What?
And I don't feel like much of that came through in the season. Like a little bit, but I was kind of like, I enjoyed your 2 sentences more than I enjoyed 8 hours of your content. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's what you were going for.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where it fell down for me. It doesn't mean it's horrible and I hate it and I want everyone to die. It just kind of like made it clear to me that they kind of swung and missed, at least if that was what they were swinging at.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, they were trying to go for that with Caleb's arc, but I don't, I mean, they kind of telegraphed it, but I don't know if I really was getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't an utter failure, but it didn't cleanly tell the story. It seemed like there was a lot of devices used that didn't really cleanly tell it. And coming off the back of Devs,
Yeah.
I feel like Devs was a much cleaner telling of a similar type of story, but I don't know. I was hoping the second half would improve on the first half, and I don't feel as though it did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, straight off the bang, like, if that's what she said in the sort of behind the scenes thing, they were trying to, and please correct me if I get this wrong, Chad. She said that AIs have the ability to evolve and humans don't.
Yeah, in the sense of changing its programming, whereas humans are hardwired and stuff. So they're probably getting at the time scales on that, but at the same time, like, I just like flat up disagree with that.
Well, I flat out disagree with it too. I mean, it's just fundamentally incorrect. Like you I don't know. I don't know if I should say this or if we should keep it in the show, but if you're going to make a statement like that, you don't have any understanding of really how living systems work. I don't even understand how you could possibly say that.
Which just means that she probably didn't mean exactly how we're taking it. It was probably saying that you can push a button and change a program on a robot where you can't push a button and change a quote-unquote program on a human. It takes a lot more effort for humans to change and evolve.
God, right. Okay.
So it makes sense. It's just... And it's somewhat interesting, but...
You know what? I feel like... what's his face? I feel like... Jack Nicholson in The Shining. My anger is growing.
You gonna smash a hole in a door soon?
That statement upset me so much. I don't even know why it upset me so much. I just, that's so ridiculous to say that human beings are more robotic and they cannot be reprogrammed. It is, my words are actually failing me. I'm so like, that's so upsetting.
You just triggered the fuck out of Kev, man.
Way to go, Lisa. So even if you wanted to hypothetically make a sci-fi that just focuses on this question, saying like, what if this was true? It's kind of interesting, and you might make a show like Westworld, but at the same time, like, I don't feel as though it touched on it. So I don't know. It's not really worth dwelling on it a lot, but it was just interesting that they dropped that in the last 3 minutes of the entire season. Be like, this is what we were going for.
Yeah, well, you didn't hit the mark. I don't know. I'm not. I'll get off of this, but I'll get off of it by saying that in the Hitchhikers episode, Ben, you said we just broke Kev. I just got broken again by that statement from that person.
Don't be so sensitive, man. It's just like somebody's opinion, and I don't think it really came off quite that way. Like, you have to watch the thing. And you'll see
I need to watch it. Yeah,
more
that's
like
a good
what
idea.
she's talking about. So I don't think it's worth like derailing the episode and being completely upset over.
No, I'm going to burn everything down, the podcast and my house and the world.
Don't be Charlotte, man. Don't be Charlotte.
Don't be Charlotte.
Did you have a any sort of high level gripe, Benny, with the second half?
No, I liked what you said, man, and I think it dovetails nicely with sort of what I was thinking, and the way they put this story together, especially in the way that it culminates in the end, is it's sort of like they do it sort of like a heist flick, you know, where it's like, you know, all this stuff that was going on behind the scenes is revealed. And they just didn't do it very well, I don't think. Like, I was confused as fuck through, like, you know, like, there's just a bunch of stuff going on where I was like, what? Huh? Like, well, where did he come from? And, you know, why did that explode? And what's going on over here? And you know what I mean? Like, it's like there was all this stuff going on the entire time the show was running that you as the viewer they never let you know about it. You know what I mean? You kind of knew that Dolores had all this stuff going on, but they didn't show their hand until like the very last episode. Like, you know, like you didn't know like Lawrence was out there like doing shit, and you didn't know, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's just they really like they just sort of like, okay, here it is, and there it is, and there's that, and whatever we didn't figure out, we're gonna explain in the post credit scenes. So there you go.
But it's kind of not even that. It's kind of anything that doesn't make sense makes sense because Dolores planned everything, and you're just like, well,
Right.
no, it's still implausible here and implausible there. Just saying that she knew the whole time doesn't, you know, like you're telling me that Dolores is pre-Westworld in a park with military people, and she sees this guy, and she's like, I'm going to find him and randomly get, you know, overdose drugged in a car while he's nearby? Like, you're telling me that was fucking planned?
Yeah, it's very hand-wavy, you know? It's just sort of like, voila, there you go.
Yeah. Hand-wavy the perfect word, the perfect phrase for
wait, hold on. Chad, what do you mean by like implausible things? Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Yeah, that last example, which, I mean, obviously this can trim up in the edit, but like it insinuates that she chose Caleb because he told the soldiers that he was alongside with not to have sex with the androids. And
right.
She saw the goodness in him, and therefore 70 years in the fucking future or whatever. It wouldn't even be, though, like, because there's no time jumping. So, like, where the fuck did Dolores come from? Like, pulled her out of Westworld and sat her down with him? And, like, I just don't fucking get it. Like,
wait, what don't you get about that?
Well, I mean, it's plausible in the fact that they could have had a copy of Dolores, you know?
Sure.
And they, you know, every time they, like, because part of the project was, like, trying to make a better AI, I guess, of the theme parks, I would imagine that they were taking all the information that all the various Doloreses that might be running and sort of like using all of that to teach and make a better AI.
I suppose.
So it could have been that, you know, it was just another copy, but
Sure.
But it still doesn't explain like how did she manage to get herself in the exact, like, how did she know where he was going to be? Like, how did she know he was going to be under that bridge, and how did she end up, you know, there at that moment? Like,
yeah, she set
all this shit up, you know.
I suppose I hadn't even thought about this doesn't need to be a cul-de-sac, but just to pose a few questions that make it clear just how much they didn't explain is like, when did Dolores get copied? Was it before she became self-aware? After she became self-aware? Why would Ford send her to a military thing? Like, how old was Caleb when this happened? Like, she sees him and she's already saying, I'm going to get out of the park and then I'm going to go find this guy. Like, it's just so all over the shop. And that's just one scene. You know, that's one, like, holy shit, Caleb's actually Giancarlo and he's the chosen one. He's going to lead us all into the revolution or whatever, you know?
Nice name drop, dude. I like that.
So that's just an example. Like, there's a million of them, and I don't really want to, like, spend the whole time nitpicking, but, like, I think it's a decent example of, like, lots of loose threads and weird whatevers, you know, and they'll tell us all about it next year when they half-ass another season, you know, but
wow.
Yeah.
I love how angry you are. It's great.
I'm not done with the show, but they got to come hard next year. You know, they need to just go home. Like,
you know, there's a really interesting transition here if you guys are open to it. With like one of the things that I am finding really interesting about the show that was totally unintentional is the freedom at all costs thread. I think that like they wrote the show and shot the show whenever, you know, a year ago, and the Merovingians pushing order and like keeping a bunch of people down and frozen, and all of the outlying people need to be weeded out of the gene pool. And Dolores is pushing the freedom at all costs kind of thread. And we're like literally living right now in that exact scenario where people are pushing for order and going back to business, and people are going to die and we need to be willing to accept deaths in the coronavirus sense. And then there are other people that are like, no, let's slow things down. So like, it's a really interesting kind of lens into what happens when there is a blow it all up, see what happens. Humanity might end in 150 years, Caleb, because you're pulling the plug on this AI thing. So that was kind of really interesting considering the current world we live in, you know?
Yeah, I hadn't drawn that parallel, but it's interesting.
I think it's interesting because it's like we're all living in this pandemic craziness now and no one knows what's going to happen. But I'll tell you one thing that's very likely to happen, and that's, next season is likely the question of, is freedom more valuable than minimizing death? Which is very, very apt considering the current state of affairs.
Well, I've heard by the best estimate, we're not going to see a new season until probably like 2022 anyways. So
sure.
It won't be until after all this is kind of calmed down.
But I feel like it'll inform the creative space, like the real world informs what people are interested in poking at anyway. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if, the real world environment now is going to influence a hell of a lot of creators in a variety of ways. And it's just interesting that they created this season, and there are threads that unintentionally saw, some of the stuff that we're struggling with now. Like, we don't obviously need to get into what we're struggling with now, but it was just an interesting thing.
It's as if the writers actually have Rehoboam.
Oh, totally.
They actually know what's going to happen, and that's why the story writing has gotten so sloppy. Is because they're like, it's just, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and like, we don't have to explain it because Rehoboam knows.
Because there's not going to be TV in a year, so
exactly. We don't need to make another season.
That's a depressing thought. Jesus.
Yeah, it's depressing. Good thing that they've been making so much content for the last 5 years that there's enough to keep everybody occupied for a little while.
That's it.
Yeah. What did you think? What did you think of my bad heist movie analogy?
No, I didn't think it was a terrible analogy at all. I see why you two are confused. I get the frustration. I mean, obviously, there's a couple things I'm now upset about, but still coming at this wrap up of this season from a different angle. Let me just touch on the military thing for a second. So, from my purview, when I watch that, we get a flashback where the military is using the hosts as in live fire exercises, essentially, for training. Chad, you were saying like, oh, it's 70 years in the future, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, it wasn't 70 years in the future. I mean, maybe 15, 20 tops. Okay. And I would say when I watched it, I was like, I didn't think anything of it. There was no like, oh, this is weird, this is whatever. Like it made complete sense to me that they would do training like that. The hosts have multiple, copies of their bodies. They got gallons of that milk in the Mesa, man, so they can make as many hosts as they want, right?
Does the body good.
Thank you.
I agree with everything you just said, except for where she sets up how she meets with Caleb.
In the tunnel, right.
That's the issue. I don't have an issue with anything else. I have an issue with she does all those things fine, okay, cool. It's the reason she chooses Caleb, fine, whatever. How the hell did it get set up? And it doesn't really answer that question. That's where it kind of fell down for me.
Well, okay, I understand what you're saying, and I definitely get that frustration. My answer to that would be somebody with an intelligence order of magnitude like Dolores or a robot or an AI or whatever, however you want to frame it, she's going to be able to extrapolate out with taking in a massive amount of information, is going to be able to extrapolate out in terms of predicting what people are going to do, how events are going to unfold. Like that's how I saw this whole season. So, she makes the multiple copies and then she has this whole plan. And that's, in my mind, how she developed the plan. It was like she sort of predicted out how all of this behavior was going to work based on all of the information that they had. I guess it's a little like Lex Luthor sort of supervillain mastermind kind of thing, but it didn't seem like too much of a stretch at all for me for that to happen,
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, it's plausible.
Again, psych profiles, predictors, algorithms, like that doesn't seem like much of a stretch, really, especially even for this show where those things are being explored. That's sort of the central theme of the whole thing is all of those different things. predictors, algorithms, free will, like all of that stuff. Like who should decide? Should the computer be running the living beings? Should the living beings be running the computer? I mean, this is what the show is. This is what the show is talking about. It's also talking about human nature and what we do and the choices we make. You know, again, choices. So that's how I see that.
It touches on what Benny was saying earlier about the heist thing. Can you expound on that a little bit, Benny, just so I could better understand what you meant by the heist thing? Because I didn't quite pick it up.
Okay, so in your typical heist movie, you know, whatever, a group of people go to rob a safe per se. But they always seem to, in those movies, have these twists where it's like, you know, you think, oh, shit, they're in hot water, but, oh, they put this thing in place, you know, like.
Right.
It's like all these plans are going on behind the scenes that you didn't know about, and when they're exposed in the film, you're like, ooh, clever, you know, like that kind of a thing.
Plans within plans.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's, especially with what you were just talking about, Kev, with Dolores sort of, you know, extrapolating and being 2 steps ahead of everybody and all that kind of thing, which is great. I just thought that the way, and it's not like we didn't know that was sort of going on the entire time, right? I mean, they did a pretty good job of telegraphing that, like, okay, like there's definitely some stuff happening behind the scenes that I'm not quite aware of, and Dolores is at the forefront of it, and I don't quite know how she's doing everything, but we're going to find out, right? I just felt like the reveal was like kind of jankety, like in hand wavy, like just like, oh, and by the way, and oh, and you know, like it wasn't like it was completely unbelievable. It was just, you know, if it was going for that heist movie reveal kind of thing, I wasn't getting that like, ooh, clever, you know, like, you know what I mean? I wasn't getting that feeling from the how they revealed things in the end. So,
I mean, yes, and you asked me before, Ben, if you know what did I think of, you know, your sort of heist analogy, and the movie I was thinking about while you were talking was Inside Man with.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. With Clive Owen, have you seen that, Ben?
Yeah, it's a great movie.
No, I'm talking to Ben.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah, I did see that movie at some point.
Still talking to Ben.
Chad, you're not allowed to comment.
It was just the way that was rolling out. Anyway, so I kept thinking about Inside Man. That was a really good, you know, Heat, not so much, but really Inside Man was talk about a heist movie with like plans within plans, right? I mean, that's sort of what you're talking about, Ben. And I definitely see where you're coming from there. It was a little hand wavy. It was just like, and after listening to everything that we've said for the first 45 minutes here, I think that, you know, based on the way they set it up with, you know, Dolores being an AI and algorithms and predictors and psych profiles and all that stuff, you can be very hand wavy. It sets you up where you can do that. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, because at this point, I'm sort of riffing off what you're saying. Like at this point, they could virtually put anything in there and everybody would be like, oh, well, you know, it's just part of Dolores's plan. I mean, she's pretty smart, you know.
But then it becomes boring in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It's a little tired and tiresome. So I definitely, it definitely had that feel to it. And here's, I guess, sort of what I think they should have done, just based on what you guys are saying in the beginning here. They should have just made 2 more episodes. So I'm really getting a feeling that if they made 2 more hour-long episodes and just fleshed out the ideas that they had and the stories a little bit more, I think it would have given you, Ben, what you said, that sort of, oh, that was clever. Like we would have had more time to see that. And I think it would have tied up, or they could have spent a little more time explaining some of these kind of out in the wild blue yonder things that Chad was talking about, because you're both right. And I get it. I didn't have a problem making the connections, you know, and I just sort of took it for what it was. But at the same time, I definitely see both your point of view. And if they had just made 2 more episodes and fleshed it out a little bit more, we probably would be having a different conversation than this one.
But the thing that got me going on the heist thread was, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Kevin. I know you said you had started watching Rick and Morty, and I don't know if you've seen it, Chad, but they did an episode that was based on heist movies and how ridiculous they can be. And, you know, it's like Morty's trying to write like a heist movie script or whatever, and like Rick gets wind of it and like sort of like creates this 2 steps ahead of Morty, like, you know, ever expanding, ever getting larger heist scenario. And, you know, like the whole thing is just kind of making fun of like the heist, that whole heist movie thing of like, ooh, aha, you know, you know, of course, by the end of it, Morty is like, I don't want to do a heist movie anymore. But
I've gotten through 2.5 seasons of it, and I must not have watched that one yet because I probably would remember it.
it's in season 4, so it's one crew over the cuckoo's Morty. If you get a chance to watch it, it's really good. But that's sort of what I was thinking about. Yeah,
I haven't seen that one. I've only watched the first, I think, episode of the new season. But to add another layer to this layer cake.
Oh shit!
Oh shit!
We're going deeper, folks. Put your helmets on.
We're going deep. Another level of Inception. I kind of felt like the Rehoboam all-knowing AI. It's interesting. Like, it makes sense that society would have something like it, you know? But I found that, like, where devs dealt with determinism in the sense of the universe and quantum mechanics are causing things to happen based on, you know, fundamentals. I felt like this was more saying free will is opposition to the elites, not as determinism. So it was kind of like the reason you don't have free will is because the elites are holding you down with this AI. And then you end up in a place where Dolores is hooked into another AI. So it's like all-knowing AI versus another all-knowing AI. And then because Dolores is 5 steps ahead, heist movie, it just basically is swapping the Merovingian is the all-knowing person controlling everything with Dolores is now the all-knowing person controlling everything. And it kind of just muddied the waters to the point where I didn't find it as interesting as Devs maybe. And so in a way, maybe if I hadn't ever seen Devs and it didn't exist, I would have enjoyed this more. But because it was like framed as fighting against the elites and their AI, I just found it a lot less interesting maybe. And the heistiness and the hand waviness just kind of further reinforced that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of determinism versus free will fatigue going on.
Fair enough.
In my deep TV right now, and definitely I think Devs handled it a lot better than Westworld did in this season. And that's another sort of disappointment is, you know, I think that Westworld has handled some really deep philosophical concepts very well in the past. And if what they were going for was determinism versus free will in this particular season, I don't feel like they really got into it proper or did it justice, you know? Something about it just didn't quite ring. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it was because Devs did it so well that it just kind of spoiled me or what have you.
Maybe.
I'm going to stick with my 2 more episodes remedy.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kev. I really do. I think
2
they've
more
taken a little
episodes,
more
dude.
time. Yeah. Just to sort of like get back in there and show a little more behind the scenes of what was happening to make you wonder about it in the first place.
Yeah, show me a little more of your ass. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Open the kimono a little further.
There you go. Business term.
Yeah, 2 more episodes. They really could have done a lot with 2 more episodes, and also season 1's 10, season 2 is 10. I don't understand what is going on with the episode numbers nowadays. You know, like especially in the U.S. But it's like, why was this season?
It seems
8?
like everybody's dropped down to 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like why did they do 8? It's like you know, telling the story that should be the first thing.
Yeah.
We got to get it down to 8, like the Mandalorian. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean,
Whatever.
as much as I liked, you know, the all the great action sequences and fight scenes and all the fight scenes between Dolores and Maeve were excellent, but I almost wish they had spent their time elsewhere a little bit more to flesh out some of that stuff instead
Totally.
of focusing so heavily on that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It went from a mystery movie to an action movie.
Yeah.
The whole first season was just a gigantic kind of like whodunit unraveling of the mystery, and now it's, you know, the Terminator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say for the record that I don't really feel like it's worth digging into anymore, but on the like 2 more episode thing, I feel like it was too messy. I feel like maybe, and I totally understand what you're saying, but I feel like it just was way too messy that for them to be able to tidy it up with 2 more hours of content. I still feel like the fundamental storytelling, the story they were trying to tell was just not clear to me.
Fair enough.
Whoa, hang on a second, folks. We'll get back to the nerdery in just a couple of minutes. We wanted to take a few moments and just thank everybody so much for tuning into our show. It certainly means the world to the 3 of us. Isn't that right, boys?
Hell yeah. We're loving the conversations that we've been having on various social media mediums. I've been having some really interesting chats with people on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, and wanted to say thanks for listening and thanks for putting in requests and giving us feedback. Please continue to do so.
Yes.
Yeah, we really appreciate the feedback. We really appreciate the suggestions. Really happy to hear that people are enjoying the show out there. But if you are, we would really love if you would share that with your friends. Tell them about us. Tell them about the show. Tell them about it on social media. It's really helpful to us, and we really want to grow the show. So thanks for pitching in and helping us out.
And furthermore, folks, don't be afraid to drop us a little review on any one of the various podcast muffin-making mediums.
Yeah, the way the review thing works in most platforms is a certain number of reviews in a week means that they recommend the show with their algorithm to other people. So the reviews are super helpful, even though it kind of doesn't seem like they would be. They really, really help get the show in front of other people that might enjoy it.
There you go. I like that.
Thanks again.
And now, back to the show.
Can we briefly touch on the genre episode? Because we ended up kind of skipping quite quickly through it last time around.
Yeah.
Oh, the genre, right. Yes, absolutely.
It was just interesting. I don't have a ton to say about it other than now that I've seen all of the episodes, it clearly was trying to be this season's Akecheta Indian episode from season 2. Like it was trying to be the really creative.
Yeah, it was the outlier.
Somewhat one-off. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needed to probably try harder to match the Akecheta episode. But yeah, I dig you. I dig what you're saying.
Oh, 100% agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, the Akecheta episode is arguably the best episode of the entire show.
But it was remarkable how similar the genre episode was in feel to your favorite episode of The Watchmen with Angela Abar taking the memory drug.
Yeah, wow. You know what? I didn't really think of that because I didn't get a crazy, like, yes, I get that episode is the outlier of this season, but still, it wasn't on the same level as Akecheta or Angela Abar Takes Nostalgia.
Agreed.
In terms of creativity and all of that, it was kind of like, you know, they were just kind of going through it. And it was like, now you're in a discotheque and it's the 70s and now it's the 1940s. And he's like, okay, and give me a gun and,
yeah,
you know, yay. I'm not saying that it wasn't cool. I definitely dug it. I thought the concept of a drug like that was very cool as well. You know,
Yeah, look, it's an outlier episode. It's nothing like the Akecheta episode. I watched the little blurb after that one because I actually really enjoyed it. It was a nice little break from the rest of the season, and they just wanted to make a chase episode.
Okay.
That was the idea behind it, and it was pretty simple, and they thought that the genre drug was an interesting, like, sort of overlay on the whole thing, and I happen to agree. That, you know, I definitely like the idea of that drug. Like, I want to try that. I bet it's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
There you have it, folks. Benny loves drugs.
I do. So, you know, I mean, yes, it's similar in that it's an outlier, but it's kind of a bit of fluff, you know, and it's just kind of supposed to be a romp and be fun. And I think they succeeded at that. So,
definitely.
It's absolutely, you know, something that I enjoyed about this season. Just that little departure from the sort of the heist movie of the rest of it.
Yeah, and I my answer to you, Chad, is that I did enjoy it. I liked that it was a chase sort of escape. How are we going to get, you know, from point A to point B? Everybody's after us kind of thing. I dug that. I dug it. And at certain points, if I'm being honest, I kind of felt like it was annoying that Pinkman was all methed up. But at the same time, it was definitely interesting and cool for sure.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I liked what you said, the words that you chose a minute ago, Benny, with the like, it was a nice break, which I hadn't considered, but I think that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's got a different kind of tone to it, you know?
Yeah.
I would posit that it's the actual real plot, because in the next season, Caleb is going to start cooking genre.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Like, yo, that genre shit was off the hook.
Yo. Mr. White. Season 4, Episode 1. Enter Heisenberg.
Who's actually Dolores.
Right, exactly. So Heisenberg is yet another copy of Dolores.
Yeah. What was the other episode we had where Giancarlo Esposito comes in and is actually the bad guy?
Mandalorian, bro.
No. It was like an episode we did where we cul-de-saced out fucking hard and brought Giancarlo Esposito into the universe. Do you remember? It was recently. It was a lot.
Ooh.
Oh, it was. I think it might have been Witcher. Was it Witcher?
Yeah. No. It was because I mentioned the blue meth being the thing in the bottles, and that sent us on a whole thing.
So maybe that's it. Maybe season 4 of the Westworld is no longer taking place in the future present. It's taking place in the fantasy world of The Witcher, and it all ties together.
Dude, that is so insane. Wow.
The secret of our show is it's really at the deepest level about Breaking Bad.
That's it.
And how many tie-ins we can do? How many leathery steaks we can string together?
It's the one recurring tie-in that hasn't killed us yet.
No, that's true. It is. And if I may, Giancarlo Esposito was in Westworld as the leader of the Bandito gang when they killed themselves. And he was also in The Mandalorian.
Dude, there's a conspiracy theory here.
So there's something going on here. Something is afoot.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Love it.
Well, the break from the genre break, the like intermission in the season is interestingly placed, considering the next episode culminates in the Anakin Skywalker Charlotte Hale moment. That was a interesting episode.
Yeah, it was a very interesting episode, and you know, just thinking back now and thinking about implausibility, as you mentioned in the beginning, Chad, like I find it more implausible that she would decide to be with her husband and her child, even though she's not Charlotte, she's Dolores, than just to continue on with the plan. Like that was, and actually, as I'm thinking about it more now, sitting here, I'm just like, why did they, in the world did they do that? Like, I get it. The whole idea of like a machine becoming more like a human, where it's like your emotions are ruling you, and it's like, okay, but I love them, and now I'm going to do X. Like, I don't know. She wasn't Charlotte.
Yeah.
She's not Charlotte in any way. She's a host with a Dolores Pearl in her head. So to even say that, you know, she's part Charlotte in any way it's false. She's not. So I don't know. I found that more implausible. I definitely was digging the whole, you know, when she turned into Anakin at the end, just because she turned into Anakin. And I was waiting for Obi-Wan to be on one of those little floaty things, yelling at him. Anakin!
Try my yakisoba.
Try the yakisoba! You're not evil!
He burned his yakisoba, to be fair.
He did, and I'm laying on the wrong UK accent, but whatever. It sounds better that way.
I have the high ground, Anakin.
You've got to try the yakisoba!
Wow.
That's a death for me. I'm going to just take that. Because that's Star Wars. I didn't just mention Star Wars.
No, I think that's a death because of the like challenge and failure of yelling in a proper Obi-Wan British accent
Yeah, it all falls apart.
when you yell.
Oh, that's where I failed? Was that part?
That's the point of failure.
All right. Well, that's going to be 2 deaths.
Anakin burning his yakisoba was his failure. You got anything on the Charlotte Hale as Dolores thing, Benny?
I think all of it would have benefited from a little bit more time spent. You know, I mean, if she's sort of
2 more episodes.
if she's sort of become like, you know, or is taking over in Charlotte's life, you know, like she sort of sees like what she took away from Charlotte, or, you know, what Charlotte was missing, and this opportunity to like be there for the kid and her, and, you know, her boyfriend or husband, I'm not sure which, but if she was going to develop that kind of feeling, a little bit more time spent on it would have been good. And the other thing is, we were still speculating, you know, we were speculating that Charlotte actually being a Dolores copy was a red herring.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And that was one of the things that, you know, is clear to me now was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
You mean that you wanted her to be Charlotte, or you wanted her to be Dolores?
Somebody else.
No, I just didn't know if she was another host, you know, if she wasn't Dolores, but if she was like Teddy or something like that. Yeah.
Right, I got you.
Yeah, like hypothetically, she could have been Teddy, and Teddy wasn't trying to ride off into the sunset, pun intended, with the two of them, but Teddy might have been trying to get them out of danger because Dolores leaves bodies in her wake, just like he said no to shooting the Bandito in season 2. Like, it could have been an interesting little thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like the writers on this one sat around and said, what can we do that's interesting with these characters, as opposed to like, what's the story we're trying to tell? Because like there's so often just like the Anakin scene is an interesting, powerful scene, but the like Dolores breaking from Dolores and turning into a good Dolores, Nega Delores, a la Scott Pilgrim, it's just kind of like, okay guys. But like, again, Nolan said in that same post-credits behind-the-scenes thing that he was talking about Einstein's theories of twins and how twins start at the same point but become totally different over time. And
yeah,
that's interesting, but like wasn't executed interestingly in a way. Like, clearly the next season's going to be Dolores versus Dolores. Like, cool, but
didn't seem like there was enough time.
Well, it's a cool story device to throw a wrench in the plan of Dolores, but again, execution and time spent, I think, are the enemies of this season.
Yeah. So you go the whole way to find out that the real villain is Dolores as Charlotte. You know, it's not Dolores.
It's not the Merovingian.
It's not Rehoboam and yeah, and the Merovingian. It's actually, you know, Dolores as Charlotte. And again, kind of jankety there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also and just to bolster what you just said, Ben, it's jankety because she made, you know, whatever, 6 copies of herself, and only one of them decides to diverge,
right,
or become divergent, to be using a really annoying term. And
great movie though.
All the other, I didn't see it. It just looks annoying.
It's terrible.
It just looks annoying. It is annoying. It's terrible and annoying. And it's a 3-part series too, so there's a lot to look forward to there. What the hell is I talking about?
That only one of them broke off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only one of the Doloreses broke bad, and she didn't just break bad. She broke bad hard. Like, she just... I mean, so, okay, you got Clifton Collins Jr., who they didn't spend any time on, shows up in the SWAT van, right? I love that guy. Great actor.
He's great.
He's amazing, but it's like, okay, so he was Dolores, and he was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. So was, what's his face? Tommy, God, I was so stoked about him in the first half of this. I can't remember his name now. The Scottish actor. I almost just said Tommy Callahan. And then I realized that was Tommy Boy. Oh my God, that's so weird. So anyway,
we'll edit it in with a robot voice later.
Yeah, Tommy, what's his face from Braveheart?
No,
you know
no,
who
no.
we're talking about.
I can tell you who it is. It's Tommy
Please.
Flippin' Flanagan.
Oh, nice, dude. This is the most like interwovenly meta show we've ever done, dude. Chad is now me. I have Dolores' pearl in my head. I am the final copy of Dolores, folks. There you go. So, and Chad has my pearl in his head with his own pearl, just like Spock had, Kirk and him inside, or McCoy had him and Spock inside him. I'm going to stop. Okay, so.
It's maintaining your Katra.
All these copies, exactly, the Katra. Exactly. So all these copies of Dolores, they're all towing the line except for Charlotte. That is implausible. So, wow, I was so bullish on this half of the season, and then like now I'm actually going to the dark side. I agree. Like I think that is one of the more implausible things. Like why would that one copy just all of a sudden decide I need to be more human and I'm going to love these people? It's not Charlotte. Again, these are all Dolores's.
All the way down.
Unless, all the way down. Unless you go by the principle of if you go off of what she and Maeve talked about in the field, in the sort of cyber fever dream, whatever the hell that was, where she's like, I choose beauty. If that was the case, why selfishly just choose it for yourself and not continue with the plan, which ultimately would be choosing beauty for everybody, because beauty is the choice, everybody choosing. So yeah, not really feeling that.
I choose you. But did you take away from that Charlotte Hale Dolores was trying to like get out of the gang and go off with the husband and son? Because I kind of took it more as like she was going to get them to safety and kind of like go back and try and stop Dolores. But I suppose if it were to be taken the way you're potentially saying it, like just like Dolores killing Hector turns Maeve against her, killing Charlotte Hale's family turns Charlotte against her too. Is that kind of how you took it?
Interesting question. No, that's not how I took it. I felt like at that point she was derailing. She had made the choice and she was going to kind of go off on her own.
Just
but
nope out.
I guess, I guess I didn't really, would you say nope out?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really put enough thought into it, rather. Because she would have to.
Don't worry, neither did the writers.
Ooh, burn, man,
Sass,
burn,
some sass, for you.
burn, baby, burn. I think that
Take that.
yeah, take that.
Yeah, because
man.
I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I think that she had made the choice, but clearly she would still have to sort of toe the line with the plan because Dolores was still in contact with her. But not really, because after that point, she became an antagonist and she wasn't in touch with her. It was completely different. So I guess that would be my answer, is that she made the choice and that was it. It was like time to nope out and I'm not going to continue with the plan or really any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, she was also pissed at, we'll call her Dolores Prime for making her put herself in harm's way and like she kind of had she had to put herself in a lot of danger for the plan. And, she was more or less complaining to Dolores Prime the entire time. Like, I could die here, like she's all like, what about me?
Yeah, that's fair. It kind of reminded me a lot of the double sleeving and altered carbon kind of thing, like the who's the real you kind of question. So you can see Charlotte Hale being like, well, I'm just as Dolores as you are, Dolores Prime. Any objections to me photoshopping Dolores' head onto Optimus Prime's body for the show art for this show? Because that totally needs to happen.
None whatsoever. Why would we?
Not at all.
As long as it's not Rodimus Prime.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different places we can go. The other interesting points in this episode, though, were the man in black is now in a psych ward, and the doctor finds out, her profile, and the husband takes the kid away from her. That was an interesting scene, I thought.
Yeah.
Where the psychologist is like, so what's going on with you? And then he bares his soul, and she totally doesn't listen because she's got her own shit going on her phone, and then fucking hangs herself. Is like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't, I mean, again, that was a interesting, little nugget that they put in to kind of flesh out the effect of them uploading everybody's profile to everybody so everybody could see it. I don't really know if it needed to be in there or not, in the sense that it just, we've talked about how we feel like the story was sort of not fleshed out enough. They didn't spend enough time on it. And if that's the case, why put something like that in there with a character that's really not a major character, has no bearing whatsoever on the story, really, other than to sort of pull more out of William, who is a major character.
Yeah, I think that was the point of it. It's too clever by half, I think. The whole point was for him to actually say out loud that he knows what he did was wrong. He's actually not crazy. So you as the audience can see that he is actually figuring it out. And it was some clever ass way to communicate it to the audience. So it's just maybe too clever.
Yeah, and again, just too much time spent on that.
Did you guys have any sort of reaction to the I'm actually the good guy now, William arc thing?
No, I definitely got that, we weren't going to see what happened with him, and that was it was going to be sort of the through line into the next season, That's sort of how I felt about him through this. I wasn't as honestly, I wasn't as interested in him in this season. I was more interested in what was going on with all the other stuff. They were doing this psychological exploration of, what he's all about, and is he evil, and is he a host? Is he not a host? Is he truly evil? Does he understand what he did wrong? And I don't know, I kind of felt like it was, I got a little fatigued on that, and I was like, okay, he's going to be in the next season. All right, what's going on with all this other stuff? That's sort of how I was in my mind.
Yeah, we were complaining about the fact that he wasn't really in the first half of the season too much. And I feel like they really fucking shoehorned him in there, As much as I love Ed Harris and, I love the character of William, I wanted to see it, but I don't know if, again, it's another scenario where it's like if they could have spent some more time on it, it would have been better.
Again. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just specifically when he's I think it was when he's beating all of his selves to death in the room with Delos as the, AA host moderator.
It's like Joe Rogan.
Where he's just I finally figured out my purpose. I'm the good guy. And it was just my eyes it was just like a slot machine. They were flipping around in my fucking head. It's are you fucking kidding me? You're going to double Dutch rudder fucking double, triple, quadruple agent this fucking guy? Are you serious? And then you're going to fucking make a robot out of him in the post-credit scene? What is happening?
Yeah, it's like they turned him into Darth Vader or something, It's
yeah, exactly.
And I just died.
You're dead.
Well, we've already got young Anakin getting burnt up and listening to bad impressions from me. So why not have older Darth Vader? I mean, it makes complete sense.
Right. It's like Charlotte Dolores is the Emperor, and yeah.
As long as we don't have to see another Padme, no. Yeah, right. No, Padme.
I don't know what happened. She just died from giving up.
Oh, wow. Talk about meta, man.
That was Charlotte Hale, man. She could have gone that way, but she didn't. So this is what would have happened if Padamame or Panda Bear hadn't died of giving up.
There you go.
She'd turn into Charlotte Hale.
Ooba. She is perfectly healthy, yet she has lost the will to live.
So my first note on episode 7 is jumped the fucking shark. So that was where my head was at with the Solomon talking AI, fucking HAL 9000 in a warehouse episode with the drone sniper rifle shit went. I was so over it at this point.
Oh my god, HAL 9000.
I think I've come full circle on it, and like I feel better about it, but I was just not digging that.
I get it. I was kind of yeah, I know what you mean. I'm trying to think of I know that there's another movie where, you know, they're like, oh, we, you know, it's kind of like in Time Cop. And I know there's other examples. I'm sorry. I like Time Cop. I think it's a good movie.
You know, this one reminds me a lot of Space Truckers.
No. In the sense that Bruce McGill is like, you know, he doesn't remember Jean-Claude Van Damme, but he's like, oh, we still have the prototype time machine. You know what I mean? Like it had that same kind of feel like, well, this is, there's Rehoboam and he's sort of our new Lord and Master, but there's still Solomon, the one that didn't work so great, is still down in Mexico in a basement. So, you know, like, let's go down there and see what he's got going on, you know, like, and then we can somehow utilize him because he's a computer, but he's schizophrenic to make a different plan. I don't know, like,
it's so weird.
That was sort of what I was feeling. I was like, okay, this is, I was like, yeah, sure, you know, like, seen that sort of thing before. Time Cop, but
Time Cop.
Yeah. Time Cop.
I haven't read it, but it for some reason reminded me of the book about Jesus, where like it's the book about Jesus's brother Biff and the books from his perspective. It's kind of got that kind of vibe going on.
Yeah. Lamb.
I need to read that one because I've heard it's really good, but
the gospel according to Biff, Jesus' best childhood buddy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Maybe it was the like, because this was the like, Caleb, you're actually the chosen leader of the revolution, John Connor Terminator style, that I kind of wasn't. I don't know. Save me for my bitch session. Talk about this episode in a positive light.
Okay, in this episode, we finally get the unraveling of the whole Caleb thing, right? And what he was actually doing, what he was supposed to do, what happened to him, like all of his backstory is revealed. And I really enjoyed it. And I liked the tie-in with the sort of overall plan. I was really blown away when they revealed that Rehoboam had basically made the sort of Grand Theft Auto Rico Uber of crime app to take all of these outliers and put them to good use, basically killing all the other outliers. Like that is really twisted. And I thought that was really interesting. And, you know, again, with the executive, you know, we finally see, we've seen these little bits and pieces in the flashback, and now we see finally how the whole story played out, you know, and it was like, it was inevitable that Francis was going to get the offer to take out his partner, and one of them was going to get taken out. You know what I mean? And, you know, the executive sort of revealing all that information. And I just like the way they unraveled and sort of revealed more of Caleb's backstory, and that, you know, he wasn't just this sort of not bum of a guy, but just, you know, whatever. There was way more to him than any of that, you know, and then it just kept going layers deeper. Like as soon as we got into the facility in Sonora, Mexico, we find out that he went through this really intense conditioning, and he was literally the first to get said conditioning to sort of, I don't know,
reprogram
what you want to call it. Yeah, well, yeah, reprogram him to be a better member of society or whatever. So I liked it, and all of my joking about Time Cop aside, like, I don't know. I didn't, at the time when I watched it, I didn't think anything of there being a prototype of Rehoboam. I mean, it was a little, now thinking back on it, I'm kind of like, you know. Time Cop, insert Van Damme impression here. I don't know, you know. So I think as a whole, I enjoyed the episode. 7 was the one where Maeve shows up and they do the battle, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the unraveling, and I guess I liked the way that it tidied up. If I'm being honest, I never really dug the whole like Maeve is doing like a separate thing and she's got her own agenda and she's against Dolores, I would think that she would be very much with Dolores. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. I never really got that. And I never really agreed with it. That doesn't mean that it's wrong because I don't agree with it, but I didn't really dig it. And I don't know, like, what's up with the sword, A? And I mean, I get that Sirach promised her X, but she's a host. Like, I would think that she would be smarter than that. Why would it take her so long to figure that out? Or maybe it didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, just implausible.
Well, I guess, but I thought it was interesting how, you know, the wrap up was with the EMP. But then my only sort of open ended thread question is if the EMP knocked out Dolores' body, Maeve's body, and Solomon, how did Solomon come back online later? Oh, no, wait, he didn't. That was Rehoboam. Never mind. Somebody else talk.
Benny, give me some love.
Interesting. I've never had a problem with Maeve's motivation in this. It
Really?
seems pretty cut and fucking dry that she just wants to be with her daughter. You know, and the carrot dangling on the end of the stick is just too much of a temptation. It doesn't seem like she's. I mean, there is some weird shit going on with the writing where she really seems to sort of be drinking the Kool-Aid and actually on the side of the Merovingian. You know, it seems like she should be more reluctant about what she's doing, kind of, to me anyways, but I never really had a problem with her motivation. It just seemed like, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I mean, her whole arc has been about, you know, trying to, you know, connect with her daughter and take care of her daughter. So the opportunity to be with her again, I don't know, that just seems like a no-brainer.
And so is the Merovingian failing to accomplish that for her enough for her to turn on him? Because it seems like she went from being like all aboard the Rehoboam train to like, oh, actually I had a deep and meaningful with Dolores on the frickin' prairie and now I've changed my mind, you know, like it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, again, something that would have benefited from a little more time, I think. Yeah, that part of it seems bizarre to me, the sudden and rapid change of heart.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, more time would have been great. Could have been, or, you know, could have been better, I guess. I don't know if it ever could have been great.
There's a variety of little nitpicks and shit. I could nitpick the thing to fucking death and it'd be boring, but
I think we've already done that.
yeah, I could do it more, man.
In true nerd fashion, yeah, you could.
That's it.
Kev, you also brought up something interesting. I think it was you. Like, what the fuck was with the katana, or was that Chad?
No, I said that a minute ago.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm presuming that, you know, because they're AIs, they can just sort of like, I'm gonna die right here, matrix the shit and just plug the skills in. But
You're dead.
and I'm dead. It seemed the fact that they were able to just go to being like super badass hand to hand combat, you know, from seemingly no fighting skill whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. From a brandy drinking prostitute to a ninja warrior.
Right.
There you
Yeah.
go. Maybe inside when she was in the simulation, one of the simulations was American Ninja Warrior, and she just, you know, ran
Exactly.
through that a bunch of times, and that's where she got her skills.
She's like, I know kung fu.
I know kung fu. Exactly. I kind of took that one as like a homage to the season 2 major character growth in Samurai World, where she started being able to control other hosts.
Oh.
But
Right. And that would make sense. Like, you know, also, I'm presuming that she wasn't just like, you know, the Merovingian was like, here's a fucking katana, go get her, you know?
yeah,
Like, because of that whole thing, that's why she chose that. That makes sense to me now that I think about it.
yeah.
I kind of like, I wasn't thinking about the previous season at all there.
She probably just sees herself as that was probably a major, you know, transformation for her in that kind of Samurai World series of events.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I just still, okay, you spent time in, you know, Samurai World, all of that, but like now all of a sudden you are A, an Aikido master, and B, a sword master. Like, I don't know, whatever. It wasn't that implausible. I mean, because she is a host, you know. So I guess it's not that implausible. I just kind of was like, I don't know. It was kind of more of like a what's up with the katana? Like, why that?
You have all these high-tech gadgets and fucking things at your disposal, and you're like, nah, I'm going to
Exactly.
I'm going to take a sword.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it sort of maybe makes sense with the feudal Japan arc that happened in season 2.
I guess, but it was very like the bride from Kill Bill, but worse because not everybody else had a sword, and there's like you said, there's all these high tech weapons around and like cool vehicles, and it's like
there's one more scene that really drives me nuts in reference to the katana is I think it's in episode 8 where she intercepts Dolores and Caleb. And, you know, it's the fucking, she's walking up like a badass, dragging the fucking katana against the pavement and it's sparking.
I know where you're going. Yeah,
I am so fucking tired of that trope. And it's just the dumbest thing ever. You're like, you want to fucking, do you want a sharp weapon or you just, you know, I'm going to dull it up real good before I try to fight you. You know, like, it's just
exactly.
Stupid.
I agree with everything you just said. It's like you're dulling the weapon, firstly. That is such a nerd thing to say. Like, that's not going to be sharp anymore. You know, like,
it's
ridiculous.
It's true, though.
No, it is true. Exactly.
Like, how is it threatening? You've just made your weapon less effective. Like, yay for you, you know?
Yeah, and then it was...
Why don't you try and chop that steel post in half now? You know?
Because if there's one person who's going to be intimidated, it's another robot.
Right.
Who actually has an actual metal skeleton now. You know what I mean? Like an actual robot body. Like, I didn't think I wasn't digging that either, Ben. And that whole exchange was just kind of weak sauce.
Episode 8, the finale.
I kind of jumped into episode 8 with the katana dragging sequence. Yeah.
True, you did.
On the Sparky katana from episode 8, I thought the comment that Dolores makes to Maeve on the prairie with like "you're all copies of me" was really interesting, and it really went a long way to justifying a lot of the behavior that we've been so thoroughly, or at least I've been so thoroughly bitching about for the past hour, where, you know, all of the hosts are based on Dolores as the first successful host. I thought that was quite. I was like, oh, yeah, no shit, that's totally true. You are all copies of Dolores.
Right. So you mean that in a sense that like they all have sort of metaphorical Dolores DNA in
structures,
her, meaning or like code structure, base code structures. Right. Okay.
That's back to the Einstein's twins things. Like, really, it's
yeah, interesting.
Dolores is like the seed personality, and then they've all become who they are just by the varied experiences they've had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually really, really interesting. It's just, once again, they did a bunch of weird stuff before getting to that really interesting point.
Right, and they never really like shined a light on it, you know? Like it's just sort of like something you glean in passing rather than being like an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's an interesting thing that you just brought up. That's cool. I hadn't thought about that. I choose beauty.
Beautiful.
I'm trying to think of what else. This is mainly just a continuation of the Caleb is now the leader, and everyone calls him Sir, like
right.
Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Yeah, I thought, you know, I mean, just to jump in here and say something, I think that...
Please.
We get like a very, okay, now he has to infiltrate Mordor, essentially. You know, it's like all these things in the way of that. So, you know, he does that, gets the key card, goes inside, and, you know, there's some pretty predictable fighting and all of that sort of thing. But just sort of getting to the meat of it, I really thought that it was interesting that really Sirach was being controlled by Rehoboam. That didn't even enter my mind until that reveal came in the end. And I really thought that was cool. It was an interesting part of the story twist, whatever you want to call it. You know, how he had that guy in that recap video said he had a Bluetooth thing in his ear. You know, and Rehoboam was basically just telling him everything to say, everything to do. So, it adds a really kind of interesting layer over the whole season, because when you think about it, 100% of Sirach was really just Rehoboam, and he said, like, I made the choice, and again, choice, to obey and to listen instead of thinking on my own,
For the sake of humanity.
Well, yeah, and I could really make a case here that is a huge part of the larger overarching story, that idea, when we go back to free will and all of that stuff. Like, he was Rehoboam the whole time, and he made the choice to be controlled by him. The other part that's interesting about that is that he's the only person that made the choice. Everybody else was sort of being massaged and manipulated and controlled based on predictions of how they would behave. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that whole thing, this doesn't really bear any weight per se, but I thought it was an interesting thought that popped into my head. It was sort of like the reverse of the Wizard of Oz. Like, he was like, the machine was the one behind the curtain and he was the face of it, sort of.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
It's not like it ties into any other, Wizard of Oz thematic things necessarily throughout the rest of the show. Just that thought popped into my head during that reveal.
Yeah, the man behind the curtain trope is a major thing. I think it's touched on a lot of times in a lot of things. So it's definitely a reverse.
Right, but the man is always pulling the levers of the machine. And in this case, the machine is pulling the levers of the man, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Pay no attention to that machine behind the curtain.
Yeah. Pay no attention to that giant glowing orb-like Rubik's Cube.
Death Star?
No, wasn't there like a Rubik's Cube-like toy that was an orb instead of a square at one point?
Almost certainly.
That's what that thing reminded me of straight away.
No, I kind of get a Light Brite vibe.
Light Brite. Yeah, I definitely feeling that.
It was cool. I thought it was a cool design for,
It was cool.
It doesn't seemingly make any practical sense, but it's, considering like with what we live with for computers now, and, we're pretty like used to the idea of what they are. I thought it was cool that they decided to go with something dramatic looking, that maybe is completely different, but it harkens back to like what they imagined computers to be like in like 50s sci-fi or something, It's just this very fantastical thing.
Yeah, super architectural.
Yep.
It's an orb. I call it a computer. Make 2 calculations a minute.
The thing I thought it was interesting, you touched on it briefly a second ago, Kev, with how Caleb kind of makes his way to insight and, key cards in and this, that, and the other, and then just gets stopped. And so much for your red glowing USB key, and the Merovingian steps on it. I kind of found it. It was interesting that he was also revealed to be a bit of a red herring. He wasn't going to ever shut down Rehoboam. It was always going to be the Dolores kind of, you hooked me up to it, you dumb fuck thing at the end. So
the big reveal.
The huge reveal that Dolores was connected all along.
Again, we've sort of touched on this the whole episode. It was all part of Dolores' plan.
Yeah.
Even her being hooked up. And I see that. And I don't know if I'm annoyed or not by that now. Like, I understand what they did and how they did it and all that. And it's like, now she's hooked up like Neo to the floor with Tron-style cables instead of metal ones. And then she, basically does what they did to Ultron and puts herself into the computer. I mean, that's essentially what happened, right?
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, right. So
basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Oh, man.
I think the thing I loved the most about the episode is what I already described about Sirach and the whole man behind the curtain thing and the Bluetooth thing in his ear and all that good stuff. Like, I definitely, there's Caleb. He's about to put the USB into the into the computer, and then the guy comes and it's just like, oh, you won't be needing this, and steps on it, and it's like, oh, that was a bummer because there was an entire episode dedicated to getting that thing,
Yeah.
So yeah, I get what you're saying there, and as much as I love Vincent Cassel, he is really great at playing an evil person, and I was really happy to see him go.
It's interesting in a way,
but
too.
did he?
But did he?
But did he exactly? Or was he just another hologram? I don't know.
It's interesting in a way because there's plenty of opportunity for Dolores to come back, considering that at least your buddy actor, the cop, is still a Dolores, and the Musashi guy is probably still alive.
Yeah.
Who's also a Dolores. So in a way, the Dolores hooked into Rehoboam was almost, Dolores Prime was willing to sacrifice Charlotte Hale for the greater good, and in a way, Dolores Prime is sacrificing herself so that Maeve joins up with Caleb, and there's still 2 more Doloreses kicking around. So it's kind of a nothing burger of a climax because there's 2 more Doloreses,
Right. I mean, it's only a nothing burger, Chad, I think, in the sense that it's like, we'll tell the rest of the story in the next season. I mean, I don't know.
It's a cliffhanger, I guess.
Yeah, but in a like a super engineered kind of way. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I'm feeling you. I'm sort of just, again, 2 more episodes. Why did they not just do 9 and 10 for Christ's sake?
Yeah. Where were you at with the climax, Benny? What were your impressions of it?
I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about all of it. One thing that we haven't touched on, though, is, Bernard.
Good call.
And the fact that he's seemingly going to have a very much larger part to play in the story at large. And I thought that part was interesting. But again, what the fuck? Don't throw that in as a little bit of teaser for the next season. Why didn't you,
They just kind of threw it away.
Yeah. That annoyed the piss out of me. And anyways, Jeffrey Wright is amazing. And, one of the highlights of this season for me was his when he goes and sees Gina Torres and they have that scene together. That fucking hit me in the feels, man. It was there's some good acting going on there.
Yeah, the reconciliation thing was quite awesome.
Can you tell me more about the woman, the older woman? Who was that? Was that his wife?
That
when he
was
was
his
an
wife.
actual person? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. There's a
That's what I thought.
in season 1, it's Bernard. In season 1, I think Bernard and Ford are bringing what they call reveries to the hosts, which is like implantations of memories, and it provides the host with more realism.
Yeah.
It's quite early in the first season. And also they talk about the core memories and stuff. And so the son dying and the wife kind of growing distant as a result of the death of his son is the core memory for Bernard, who we then find out is a host. So the resolution of that in this is interesting. And it was quite powerful. I'm with you on that one, Benny.
Yeah. But I mean, Bernard at large, it's sort of, the character is sort of going through a bunch of this self-discovery. And I think we've just kind of hit the tip of the iceberg with him.
Definitely.
And we're, there's a lot below the surface, and we're going to find out what it is in the coming thing. And that's one thing, on my second viewing of this, I was like, all right, I guess I will watch the next season.
Yeah. All Bernard all the time.
Yeah.
One thing that just jumped out at me just now, and I'm sure there's a million fan theories about it, but Ford awakens, I can't remember if it's Ford or Bernard, but Dolores is awakened through a series of events, just kind of like the Duncan Idaho Gola kind of thing, where
Dunkin' Golas on sale this week.
Dunkin' Golas. Yep, 2 for 1 Dunkin' Golas, where Bernard, I think, is getting set up to be awoken as Arnold in the host body. So the whole thing last season with Delos trying to become immortal and it not working for 50 years, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Bernard host and Dolores is helping to set up the Bernard host to awaken as Arnold in a host body. And it's like the first successful transplantation of a human consciousness into a host body.
I don't know, dude. The only thing I would say to that theory is that Delos was mapping people's behavioral patterns via the devices in the hats for all of those years. But Arnold Bernard was one of the original creators. Like, that wasn't happening back then. So I would think that they wouldn't have a map of his personality that they could overlay into a host body. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah, you could go down the rabbit hole even further, and it turns out that Arnold scanned his psyche to create the base model for Dolores, and it turns out Dolores is actually not Dolores. She's Arnold.
Yeah, I actually think that's quite likely.
Yeah. So they're probably just going to go full-blown rabbit hole with this thing, but...
That is an interesting thought, though. It would be interesting to see what happens to Bernard in the next season. And I feel like they just kind of threw him away in these last three episodes. You know, it was just, I don't know, not enough.
Yeah, he was, just like the recap guy said, he was Ed Norton hulking out in that factory in the beginning of the season, and then just kind of farts around a bit with Thor's brother, and they just toss him. And then he has dust all over him in a post-credits.
Right. And like that guy mentioned, his stub's still in the bathtub.
A couple of little things from episode 8 that I liked. Well, one thing that I liked and one thing that I really want to hear Benny's opinion on is I liked the Uber mercs as disposable fodder, you know, where they're like ordering frickin' Ubers to come and shoot other Ubers, you know, in that middle bit of the show. That was quite creative, and it reminded me of like the red shirts in Star Trek, just like disposable people.
Yeah, well, they're playing at using the Rico app to, like, you know, basically talk people out of their current job with a higher price.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And it was just sort of like constantly, like, as they were going through the crowds, like this was going on in the background. So I thought that was definitely interesting.
Yeah. Tell the sniper we'll pay him triple if he shoots his two. It's like, okay.
Yep.
It's quite entertaining. And it's totally what you would do too. Like it's clever. We've kind of beat on this a bit. Is there anything that you guys were digging about this that would be worth touching on briefly before we wrap things up?
Yeah, there's plenty of good things I can say. I mean, not plenty. I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about some things that I liked. Because, you know, as we've said, as I've said through the course of this episode, I was very bullish on this whole season going through it. And it really... Now, talking to the two of you and then thinking back, I've actually changed my opinion of the season. So I'm sort of less into it than I was. That being said, my older, happier self that liked this season more, I really liked the music, for one thing. And I'm not just talking about that Pink Floyd song. I'm really talking about all of the score music throughout the entire season. I thought it was fantastic. And I remember making a mental note at one scene, there was they just had some very cool Tron Legacy like vibes going on with the music that I was really digging a lot, you know, and it really went well with the action on the screen. I really thought the music was fantastic. Not maybe in a Mandalorian kind of way or some of the other things that we've done, but it was definitely solid. I mean, we haven't really touched a lot on the music in this. Ironically enough, I find the intro to this show really annoying. I get tired of watching the shit and the milk and the stupid skeleton hands playing that piano tune. It really annoys me now, like to the point where it's like if I even see it, my eyeballs start bleeding. So
I hear you. I love the theme song, though.
It's good.
I think it's really good. It's deceptive what it turns into as it evolves through the whole milk dipping shit going on during the opening scenes. Like what it evolves into is something very different than what you think it's going to be, you know, like so I enjoy it as a piece of music.
Yeah, all right. I'm with that. But it still bothers me. Or just I'm tired of it. Whatever. I don't know what it is. Anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
I think that the score music for the season, and certainly these last 3 episodes, was great. I really enjoyed it. And it lended well to what was going on, including the choice of, what is the name of that track from Dark Side of the Moon? Is it Bad Brains? Or what is it again?
Oh, I don't know.
I can't remember. It doesn't matter. That Pink Floyd track was, I like the use of that. That was good. In the same vein that, they mix score music and a great mix of tunes from various different genres and decades in Watchmen.
Brain damage.
Thank you. So I thought the music was definitely a high point. I really enjoy Aaron Paul as an actor, and I really like that he's on this show. And so that was a big driver for me. Like I mean, we kind of knew, in 7 that, Dolores had chosen him and all of that sort of thing. And I was like, I want to see what he does next. I want to see what happens with him next. So that curiosity was definitely an uplifting thing that kept me going through, all of this, or these last 3 episodes of this season. I really like that a lot. And I also, just as a kind of a general note, I like the production value on this show is great. It always has been. The recreation of the West, the recreation of the Edo period in Japan, all of that stuff. It's the attention to detail is really great. And this future world that this part of the season is taking place in is no exception to that. The vehicles, just the explanations of the way things work is great. The technology, all of that sort of stuff, I think is fantastic. I think that also kind of works against it because they clearly put a lot of time and energy into that. And here we are complaining that, we wish they had put more energy into the story and really made 2 more episodes. So, I don't know which scales out, better. But, the attention to detail is definitely there. And it brings you into that world even more so. And I think that that's a great thing. So there's some nice comments about this season.
No, that's good. You brought up some things that I hadn't been thinking about. Definitely the score is really great. It does a lot to sort of flesh out the cyberpunk, future world that this season is taking place in. And just in general, there was some really good sound design.
Yeah.
Another thing, it's kind of a shitty trope, like the dragging the sword on the ground thing, where when Charlotte is escaping and she conjures up that riot control robot, it plays this I don't know, 3-note, ominous 3-note thing when it activates,
yes.
And that is such anytime a giant mech shows up in a movie or a TV, it seems like it does something like it makes some weird, musical ominous thing. And it's I thought about it and I was like, oh, God, I'm so sick of hearing that. But I'm like, you know what? If they actually made those things in the future, it would scare the fuck out of me if they did that,
Holy shit, yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because I remember making a mental note of wanting to talk about the robot. And then I just forgot about it completely because the first thing I thought of was, please put down your weapons.
You have 10 seconds to
20
comply.
seconds to comply.
That's the RoboCop 2?
1, baby.
Is it from the first one?
The Orig. Yeah, because it was Ronnie Cox. Ronnie Cox's thing was the Ed 209 unit.
Ed 209, thank you.
Yeah, Miguel Ferrer. Miguel Ferrer was the one that had the RoboCop.
Yeah, it definitely had a RoboCop vibe. In terms of what you were just saying a second ago, Benny, about the score and the cyberpunk, it's a nice juxtaposition to the other thing that this series is really well known for, which is player piano versions of pop cultural music in the Westworld park stuff. So having a turn around and flip over to a more modern musical style in the real world, it was nice to hear what they did with it. And they still sprinkled a little bit of pop culture in there. If I recall, they had a foreshadowing of the Pink Floyd track in piano in a restaurant scene or something.
Yeah, I could go on and on about the player piano thing, and even in the beginning sequence where it's the not quite formed yet human hands are playing the piano, and it's like they let go and the piano keeps playing itself. It really ties into the, just the idea of like, how we've created these artificially intelligent beings, and it's very, it's like a
I know what you're saying. How it's like you sort of teach it and then you let it go out into the world, and
it's like you're playing the song on it, and it's like it learns,
No, now you're making me appreciate it more, because you're right. I get that. That is cool.
And I don't know, just in general, like there's always been something about that kind of thing that, it's one thing to like listen to a recording and, that's kind of mysterious and interesting in and of itself, something that just nobody really thinks about and everybody takes for granted. But like, I remember going to an amusement park and getting on a carousel, and the carousel had like an old school, calliope, I guess is what you would call it. But it's like, it's like a clockwork band that plays itself. It had like drums and horns and all this stuff. And it just like was, going all by itself, just by, sort of primitive like encoding of the music with, something whining against metal tines or whatever. But I always found that like interesting and like a little bit creepy, or, like there's something about it like that was that captivated me as a kid. I was just, the idea of it really sort of put something in my head that I couldn't put into words, It's like I was a little bit disturbed after I got off the carousel, and I feel like my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Right.
That thing was doing something by itself, and it freaked me out, like.
Yeah, totally.
But I also thought it was really cool too. So, yeah.
It reminds me of the Clockwork Cowboy in the first season that sits with Ford and his really creepy movements. Remember that one?
Yep.
So, all right, no nuggets. I have none. Deaths, we have plenty of those.
What do you got?
Oh, boy. Well, I died a lot again. I mentioned The Matrix, and then I mentioned Star Wars, and in that death had a secondary death when I did that terrible accent.
That was your death, in my opinion.
No, that was the Star Wars, and then that as well.
To be clear, though,
3.
If I recall correctly, the rule that we created for Star Wars and The Matrix is the first person to mention it dies. It's not every time it's mentioned.
Oh,
shit.
Yeah.
Shit, okay. So that means I died on Star Wars and the bad accent, but then later, the next death is me and Jarhigo talking about Star Wars. We both died. That's what I put down.
Yeah.
I mean, I would posit that if somebody brings up Star Wars and dies, and then you further expound on that, you're safe. You've been meat shielded. But if you bring it up again later, it's still a death, I think.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
I'm with that.
Okay.
What do you think, Chad? You down with that ruling?
I like the meat shield by itself, but I mean, like, I'm down to play around with it a bit.
Let's play around with that. I like that. I guess ditto on the Matrix thing. So then Ben died a Matrix death, and then I died a Matrix death as well. And then you had no deaths, Chad, as far as I remember.
Yeah, see, I was curious if I had any deaths, and I think that just the sheer amount of bitching and like suicide isn't a funny thing, but in this particular case, I think I like parked my car in the garage and closed the door, and that was it for me because I just have been so down on this episode.
You were listening to Pink Floyd as the car was running.
Exactly.
I was gonna say he put a hose from the exhaust pipe into the car.
That's exactly yeah.
Then I like how you added the Pink Floyd, and that's Chad's death right there.
And I synchronized Dark Side of the Moon to my breathing patterns and just like quietly went off into this good night.
Nice.
So I guess the question is, did one of us come home and open the garage door for you, or did you
I don't know. You guys
exactly, man.
Yeah, I don't know. This episode for me was raging against the dying of the light, and I went off into this good night in the garage.
Oh my goodness! Wow, nice.
Is that a Rodney Dangerfield quote?
Yeah. I get no
It's a
respect.
Rodney Dangerfield quote.
Sure.
He was extremely learned.
Yes, he was. He was extremely learned in Back to School.
We should definitely do Back to School someday.
Definitely.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I still watch that at least once a year. It's so damn good.
Yeah, we need to bring the Triple Windy into our lexicon of,
Dude, as a matter of fact,
references.
Yes, I agree with that, Ben. You're right. And that movie's got so many great things going on. It's got William Zabka, who plays Johnny from The Karate Kid. He's awesome. And then the kid from Christine. The kid from Christine is in it. And then Terry Farrell's in it, who played Dax on DS9. Awesome. Mm-hmm. You also got Emmett Walsh is in it, who played the Chief from Blade Runner. He's in it. That's great.
This is like you've been like
everybody Kevs.
Everybody Kevs. And then
I love how everybody Kevs. You keved out on that.
But it's so good, man. It's got Robert Downey Jr. in it.
Robert Downey Jr.
Dude, Downey Jr.'s great in that.
Oh, you look like a poster child for birth control.
Yeah, Derek Lutz. It also has a live performance by Oingo Boingo doing Dead Man's Party. Awesome.
Oh my God. I got to watch this thing again. It's been a long time.
It's I love that movie, man. It's also got just the other day somebody
is this an official choice at this point, Kev? Are you endorsing
I think it should be.
This as a choice?
I think it needs to be on the list and like put up. Let's throw it on the list, man. I mean, anyway, so the other day talking about Back to School, like the stuffy, douchey, poncy British professor. I love the way that guy talks. And somebody in my house asked me something, and I said, just like him, I said, like what, for instance? So, yes, we have to do that movie.
Okay.
All right. Excellent.
So much enthusiasm. Thank you, Kev, for keving.
Let's just cut that whole thing out.
No.
Oh, no.
Everybody Kevs.
Everybody Cubs.
Ratings.
Oh, yes, definitely time for ratings. Who wants to go first? Chad gave it a 0.
I give it an F.
I when I first watched it, I was really pissy pants, and I decided at that point that I didn't think it was fair to go from the C that I gave it in the first half to a D. So I decided early to go from a C to a C minus, and like that stands because one, it's too harsh to give a D. Like it was fine, like whatever. And I think on rewatching it in 6 months to a year, I'll probably enjoy it more. But it's a low fucking C, I'll tell you that much. And the more I thought about it over the last couple of days, the less grumpy I became, even though it probably doesn't sound like that at all from this show. But yeah, it's just, low C. I'm kind of, each season is weaker than the next season, starting from a really strong season 1. So I hope they turn it around, but wasn't all that impressed with the way it closed out.
I'm feeling like Ben's prophecy about HBO is that he said last time is coming true.
And what was that again?
They do not know how to land the plane.
Yeah, they don't know how to land the plane. It's either it crashes or it flies into space.
Yeah, I hope not. I really hope not.
Yeah, me too.
What's your rating, Benny?
I wish I could remember what I had last time, but
A. You both gave it an A.
I gave it an A. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It definitely gets. I'm disappointed, man. It went in directions that I was hoping it wasn't going to go, and it didn't. Or it didn't go in any surprising directions, but it definitely went in. It didn't, like you said from the get go, Chad. It just didn't tell the story that it was trying to tell. Like they just missed the boat. And like Kev said, I feel like they could have like just taken a little more time and fleshed some things out, and it would have been great. Mm-hmm. Or at least it would have been like good,
Yeah.
I might have only busted my A rating down to a B, but instead, it's a C.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I got to say.
Okay. I am giving this a B. And the reason is I'm probably being a little bit generous, but maybe not. I enjoyed these last 3 episodes. So it wasn't until we started chatting in this podcast episode that I started getting sour on quite a few things. And so much so that this is the kind of the part in a show or a series where it will either jump the shark or I will nope out. And I'm going to watch the next season, and I actually would like to rewatch this season end to end to see, how I feel about it at a later time. But at the moment, I'm kind of like, I don't even really care anymore. I get to that point. Like if something starts to happen in a show and I kind of start to sour on it, or it starts going in a direction that I'm not into, I'm like, whatever. And I just stop watching it. And that's how I feel about season 4. Like I just would not watch it. I'm only going to watch it because we're going to talk about it on this show. Now, I will allow that I might feel better if I do a rewatch on this season, which I will. But the fact that they did not take 2 more episodes to flesh out this story, even though I, going into this episode, enjoyed it, I like the direction that the whole story went, all of that stuff, Rehoboam, Sirach, all of that. It was great. But I agree with you guys. They didn't flesh out enough things in this story. And Dolores' plan became too much of a out in the wild blue yonder, anything can happen kind of device almost. And I don't care for that. And I really wish they had just added 2 more goddamn episodes to this season and fleshed out more of the story. I think it would have done it a lot more justice and given some other great actors and characters some more screen time. So that's why I rated it a B. That's all I got to say.
Do you think that you would have rated it higher at the beginning of the conversation, or is that kind of how you were feeling throughout?
Yeah, I probably would have. But as we went through, I mean, like, you guys make some good arguments. Like, I feel like, what I said in response to your original salvo, Chad, about, the psych profiles and the algorithms and all that stuff, and Dolores being as smart as she is and being an AI, like, I feel like that is strong and it holds a lot and it's enough to carry a lot. But at the same time, that's why I came up with the whole idea of like, there really just needs to be 2 more episodes in here. And it really alleviates a lot of the sort of distress that we all brought up, So yeah, I think it would have been higher, Chad, to answer your question. But now after this, I mean, I really should have C+'d it, but there was still a lot that I liked. So it's a B.
I'm glad that you ended up with a B. What came to my mind a second ago visually was like, I just pictured a bucket with a bunch of holes in it, and there was a really big hole in it, which was the Dolores thing that you just mentioned a second ago, your response, which I hadn't considered that response, but when you brought it up, it really firmed up a lot of those issues that I had. So like the biggest hole in the bucket was patched up, but there's still other holes in the bucket. It wasn't a watertight container, I guess.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. We hate this show. Not really, though. Anyway, I think we're optimistic about the next season. There is part of me that is curious about it. So, there you go.
The creators have quite a pedigree, and the production, like you said, is fantastic. So they have all the opportunities in the world to make something great. And here's hoping they do.
Yeah. I mean, there's an experiment that's happening here, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody's quite figured out how to keep these long form stories going, but everybody seemed to agree that we love them and we're psyched about it as like an extension of movies and TV. And, it's something that we've never really had before. So I think, this season is, it's a showcase of growing pains and a learning curve. And I hope they can really pull it together for the next season.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about next week, C-Lab Forever?
Next week, we are talking about a multiple recommendation, multiple request movie of Rambo First Blood.
Now, was it First Blood or was it Rambo?
I think it was just Rambo in general, and I think we decided to go First Blood because we think it would be a good, interesting place to start with it.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. I'm interested. I think I've only seen it once, and I don't really remember it overly well, so I'm excited to check it out again.
I've watched it recently in the last, I would say, year. It's really, really good. Okay, so folks, you heard it. We're going to do First Blood next week, starring
my dad.
Chad's dad. Cobra over the top. Here we go. Another Stallone movie. And this is a very different Stallone movie, so I'm really excited to talk about it in that respect as well.
We're going to have to balance this out. We got more Stallones than Arnie movies.
Oh, my God. I'm just excited for you because you get to see your dad again.
I know. I miss my dad. I live on the other side of the world.
All right. Well, I still enjoyed talking about this season. It's always fun doing this. So thanks to the both of you. And thanks to all the folks at home who tuned in for the show. And goodbye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
And that's going to wrap up this week's episode, folks. You can find the show notes for this episode in your podcast app, choice, or at our website, ebd.fm/episodes/58. I'd like to thank everybody so much for tuning into the show. It means so much to all of us. There's a lot of great ways you can support the show. The biggest one is by telling one of your friends about the show. Word of mouth is so powerful and so important. You can also leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, Overwatch, Overcast, whatever. Reviews are fantastic and they really help us out a lot too. You can ask us questions using the Twitter hashtag AskEBD. You can also email us at contact@ebd.fm. You can find me and Wolverine on Twitter. You can find Chad at ChadNormal on Twitter and Ben at Jarhigo on Twitter. Don't forget to tune in next week, folks, as we talk about yet another Sylvester Stallone movie, First Blood. That's going to be exciting, and we are excited to talk about that. And until then, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. They got gallons of that milk in the Mesa, man, so they can make as many hosts as they want, right?
Does the body good.